Welcome to SoulThrive, where we explore spirituality through healing trauma, shadow work, and applying the laws of the universe in order to master ourselves without the fear of the unknown.
All right. Episode 2 of the SoulThrive podcast.
Oh, so excited. Okay.
Yeah. So today we wanted to talk about operating with a limited belief system. It's something we talked about over many, many years, but it's a big topic in the latest 8-week workshop that we're doing right now on healing inner child. And I know it's been coming up in everyone's environment. It's being reflected back at us. So we need to explore the limited mindset and why it's so prevalent. Where does it come from? How do we overcome it? Because a lot of people always ask about, how do I live in my potential?
Yeah.
You can't live in your potential if you're in your limited mindset. So talk to me about that a bit.
The first thing that I want to address is a limited belief and a limited mindset. Your belief systems from your childhood play a significant role in how you're going to operate as an adult. And even if you have all the knowledge in the world around how you can create success for yourself, if you don't deal with those emotional blocks and those emotional traumas, you're going to keep creating obstacles in your path. They're going to keep teaching you more aspects of yourself. But what it really comes down to is understanding, even all the hard work that I'm putting into something, why is it not achieving the success that I actually want? Not only just that, but how does this fundamentally fall into place with relationships? And how do I kind of approach situations from a very limited mindset? And I'm not open-minded enough to kind of look at the other person's point of view. So that plays a significant role. And if we get into that, then we're referencing the victim mentality. And then we're referencing the rejection wound. So these two massive points are big attractors that really kind of perpetuate the story of the limited belief, the story that's linked to the limited belief.
Right. So if someone was starting to work through this for the first time ever, what would be the process? How do you even begin to tackle something? You got to become aware, right?
So the first aspect is you have to get honest with how many stories you tell yourself as to why you are where you are, as well as why you feel like you're not succeeding or that you're not healing. And do you often compare yourself to other individuals, and why?
Right.
So you have to get very, very honest first and very direct around your understanding of yourself and the stories and the narratives that have been reiterated from your childhood and now you've adapted as your own personal narratives. So start there. And that's going to be hard because, if you are someone who's in this victim mentality, and the victim mentality is very, very narrow-minded. There's a lot of tunnel vision. You're not seeing another point of view.
Right.
You're in your defenses a lot. So you're not listening. You're not actively listening, and you're not actively interpreting the information correctly. So what ends up happening is you're only seeing things and hearing things from your own point of view. Right. So that limitation keeps creating that cycle type of behavior pattern. And then there's usually a rebellion that occurs where you don't necessarily actually achieve success, or you achieve success in a very limited way. And so I think what's important is registering first the storytelling.
The thoughts, right.
Right? Then identifying how much of an influence from my childhood, mom or dad, majority of the time, or both, played a significant role around that story that I'm saying. And it could be a generational trauma thing. It could be something that's been in the family, that's been, reiterated over and over again, to create the same type of experience that you're going through now. So that's step one.
So step one, write it down, acknowledge what you're actually telling yourself.
And then step two is are you playing the victim? Are you sticking to a narrative to the core of who you think you are? There's no mutability in you. There's no opportunity to be flexible in your thought patterns. There's no opportunity for you to explore the feelings that you're actually feeling. Usually with this victim mentality and the limited belief system, there's a lot of black and white thinking.
Right. And we don't acknowledge. I know I had to work through this. It's I'm still getting a benefit. I'm getting the victim mentality is still serving me. So I don't want to look at other perspectives.
No.
I'd rather play the victim because then I'll somebody else will feel sorry for me, then I won't be the bad guy. I can't take accountability for my life. I don't want to upset someone else.
Yeah.
And then
it also falls into like this idea, because like maybe in the family unit there was a lot of abuse and trauma, or like unresolved conflicts as well. And so what happens is we create the victim mentality so that we justify that we're a good person. Right. And that usually comes from like just this protector coping mechanism type of behavior pattern. But what we're not addressing is how it's creating all the limitations in your life and your experiences. And it actually really pushes connection away. It doesn't pull connection closer to you.
Because ultimately you can't be yourself.
No,
you're always playing
living
victim,
very inauthentically, for sure.
Right. So you talked about it coming from the childhood.
Yep.
So mother or father or both. So what are some common things that you see, like with people having specific trauma with their mothers around limited beliefs, and how does that manifest?
So when we're talking about, let's say you have a limited mindset and like the belief systems are around like, I don't have the opportunities to create, nothing ever really works out in my favor, I have bad luck. Usually that is kind of an indicator that there is some trauma around your father. Okay. And how they may not necessarily be action oriented in their lives and their experiences to make things happen, and they're not very good communicators, or they're not very good at showing you, or didn't show you how to execute certain things in your life and in your experiences. There was a limitation there. But when we're talking about like, let's say abundance, and we're talking about value, and we're talking about like that aspect of things, that is very much in relation to your relationship to your mother, because that again is about being open-minded and allowing this universal kind of principles and an embodiment of your own divine feminine energy to kind of navigate the creativity and the inspiration that you need in order for you to line up with better outcomes.
So that's what mom's job was, to teach us or show us.
To a degree, sense. Yes. Yeah, and
I know the mother wound is a much bigger discussion.
Yeah, we will definitely get into the mother wound and like the nervous system and all that. But just from a limited mindset, just so you understand, like even if you're struggling, let's say with money, or like you want to manifest something, you really have to examine your relationship to your mother and her limited beliefs and her stories.
When it comes to money in particular.
Yeah. Now the action-oriented aspect of things is a very father thing. And so if you saw that there was always a struggle and or a block or like a limitation of some sort that they operated with, you may still be operating the exact same way. And so that in itself may still create that story and that journey that's kind of creating its outcomes now in your life.
Okay, so if we just think about like the things that people often complain about, like limited mindset is like, I don't have the career that I want to have. I don't have the money that I want to have. I don't have the friendships that I want to have. I don't have a relationship that I want to have. Where are those coming from?
The main issue with that, I mean, there's many facets of looking at those experiences, and we'll kind of unravel more as we continue this podcast journey. But the most important aspect is, do you have a great sense of who you are, right? So like the conversation is, do you have a sense of self? And that would challenge a lot of the belief systems that you have in order for you to create a true sense of who you are. And so the biggest limitation is that people assume that they know themselves. And then eventually what they start to register is the reason why all these things are happening in their life and their experiences is because of these limitations. For instance, I want to be liked, or I want to have a sense of belonging, or I need external validation to show me that I'm doing a good enough job.
Those are all limited belief systems.
They're all limited belief systems because there is something outside of you that has more control over you.
Right, which goes back to even my understanding of the victim mentality, which is allowing something outside of you to control you. And it's that power imbalance, I guess, because if I have power within myself, then I don't really care what the environment reflects back to me.
No.
But the position of a victim is, I have no power, therefore I give
Yes.
the outside,
Yes.
more power over me.
Not only that, but there's this like, I will sacrifice myself. There's this part of with the victim mentality of self-sacrificing, and it almost makes people think like, wow, like they're such a good person and they're so noble and they're so kind and they have so much to offer, and what you don't understand underneath that is immense insecurity, because there's no defining of a sense of self.
Yeah, because you just want to be liked. That's
right.
And
so that can make you feel a little intoxicated too. Like it can give you a bit of a dopamine hit. But
getting the attention.
Right. And like, again, with the victim mentality, there is this narrative of needing to get the attention. When I start telling you my stories and I start telling you my situations.
Misery loves company. That's how you bond with others.
To a degree, yeah. There's an allying. There's a trauma bonding that goes on. There's nothing wrong with being able to communicate to the people that matter to you the most that what you're going through, what you're feeling, as long as you're a little bit solution oriented, or even if you don't necessarily you don't have to make decisions right away.
Right.
But as long as you're aware and you're willing to look at them and examine them and willing to like slowly start making the moves that you need to in the right space or environment or whatever you want to look at, that's fine. So, I think to a degree.
Right.
But with the victim mentality, it's almost like there's this internal narrative that's going on about, the way you're perceiving a conversation, the way you're perceiving a tone, the way you're perceiving conflict.
It's all an attack, right? Because I'm the victim, right?
It's always an attack. It doesn't matter in what way or what angle you're approaching it. That other person's not hearing you. They're not understanding, and they're not hearing you. And sometimes I find too with the victim mentality, based on like these limitations as well, there's a little bit of like waiting to see who's paying attention, so that the person who's approaching you to have a conversation about your behavior or witnessing something or challenging you in a belief or whatever limitation that they're seeing, they're waiting for other people to ally with them. So they may put on, like, they may cry, or they may have an emotional outburst to almost make it look like they're being attacked. Underlining that type of behavior pattern can create a inadvertently looking at bullying. So it's almost like now you're making the other person look really bad for them kind of giving you this awareness,
the truth, or like just any information,
but you're not seeing it, and in that moment the defenses are going up and the behavior pattern is showing up all over again. And those dynamics do happen because most likely in your childhood that was exactly what was played out in your childhood. There must have been some form of an abuse, and then the victim mentality, and then there was no resolve in those behavior patterns.
So you as a child were blamed for your mother's experiences, your father, and that's where even getting sick, we talked about getting sick, that's where that comes from. Because like, say if as a child, I remember maybe I'll get more attention if I get sick. Maybe that's the only times my caregiver will pay attention to me. So
yeah. I mean, and like that starts to create a limited experience and a limited belief and a limitation as well. Whereas like as an adult, this may translate to chronic illness.
Right.
Oh, because, right. And so like the chronic illness, and really underlining all of this, everything that we're communicating right now around the limitations and the belief systems, they are designed to a degree to give us a false sense of safety. Right. And so they've been kind of like this like journey where we've had these experiences. They've been reiterated my whole entire life. I saw how people navigated with these stories and these limited beliefs. Some of them were really painful to witness, and some of them were really painful to be. And therefore I don't want to feel the pain, even though there's a part that that person may want to change. But in order to change, you have to be willing to feel your rejection.
Okay, so that's another layer to victim mentality and limited mindset.
So those two big things, like I'm telling you, they like really kind of fall into a lot of like spiritual principles, and like why people are stuck the way they are in a lot of ways is like this victim mentality and then this rejection aspect of things.
Right.
And so that's why one of the things that in the community I often teach, like, be comfortable with being rejected.
Right.
Like just allow it, feel it. Let it be part of your experience, because the better you get at understanding that whatever someone's feeling or whatever they're going through, whatever's happening isn't a direct insult to you. It just is a moment in an experience, and people can choose any reality that they want. It's not about you.
Yeah, and the victim mentality makes it all about
And so the
person.
better that we go, okay, you didn't like that I said that to you, and you found offense to that, and then you had a response to me. Okay, I'm going to accept that rejection. I'm going to accept that experience. So then I can kind of go, okay, how can you and I have a conversation where we now can understand one another? And now I'm not in my limitation. I'm in my open-mindedness, and I'm willing to see a different point of view.
Right. Why does the victim, I can relate to this because I know in the past I had issues resolving conflicts or just speaking up for myself.
Yes.
Why does the victim mentality have such a problem actually like confronting uncomfortable conversations? Is it like because again your parents didn't want to hear you out? Like
trauma is when you are conditioned from your childhood to not have a voice, and when you are conditioned that if you do speak up there's a consequence, you do develop that fear of consequence. And so naturally, innately, the way you navigate with one of your limited belief systems when you're in that state is that everybody's a threat no matter what. And so even if someone says to you, I'm not mad at you, I'm not upset, I'm just trying to bring up this experience for you, or I'm just making you understand something from a different point of view, or I'm just trying to make you see something here that you may not be seeing, it's gonna go one of two ways. You're gonna immediately think that person is trying to manipulate you, or they're trying to control you, or that they don't have their best intentions in mind for you. And like, there is a truth in that. There is like an aspect of a lot of relationships where people do that. If we talk about narcissism and we talk about like other mental health disorders, those things are real.
Or your parents may have just simply done that because you're used to it. But
that mental health or like that reiteration from your childhood didn't give you the opportunity to go, well, not everybody can be that bad, right? And like, not everybody is attacking me. And why is it always an attack on me? What if that person is just trying to express their feelings and they're trying to gain insight about how you feel and how can we get closer? And you see this a lot, these dynamics play out like significantly in romantic relationships and in friendships and even work.
When people just say, we need to talk. When you get that message, it's like, oh my God,
well,
PTSD.
Right. Yeah. We need to talk, or we need to hash things out. I think like, I know that I'm a very different type of personality. And so for me, if we would get into, let's say, a hypothetical conflict, I'm going to hold you accountable to your end. And I'm also going to take the time to assess what you're saying to me. Right. And kind of take the time to be like, okay, this person is feeling this way and I've made them feel this way. Am I going to take complete onus for that? Or am I going to also put it back on them and say, well, you weren't clear with your boundaries. I'm not here to read your mind. I think that there's a miscommunication too about toxic people. I think sometimes like there's this reiteration that this is toxic. But then if you're in your victim mentality, you have an issue with rejection.
Everything is toxic to you.
You're limited in your mindset. It doesn't matter how someone approaches a conversation with you. You already have made the assumption
that it's going to be negative, that someone has a bad intention.
Yes.
So how does one start to get out of this?
Well, I would say if you are someone who innately gets defensive quite frequently, and you are not like, you are someone who's willing to change this behavior pattern because you're registering that it's creating a lack of connection than it is a connection, you have to get to a certain point of asking yourself, okay, like, what am I doing and what am I creating in this, obviously? And then on top of that, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So like, for instance,
have the conversation.
So have the conversations. Be a person with integrity. I think like the more honest you are and not worrying about if that person's going to get reactive or they're going to get upset or they're going to feel something, just be with it. Just be like, okay, they're having a moment. They're having a reaction. We're human beings. Like, don't assume just because someone's reactive that they're toxic. Or don't assume just because someone is shutting down that they're toxic. It's just a matter of how are we going to, if the objective is to resolve conflict, then nothing else matters. It's just resolving conflict.
So drop your defenses and have an open mind. So it's, seeing other perspectives, not just the victim.
It is hard because like some people who are in this journey or maybe are unaware of what they do, they may actually never change that behavior pattern. And what they will continue doing is using external experiences to validate who they think they are. And the validation becomes, look, I'm a really good person. Look how many people love me. Look how many experiences are happening. I'm going to be honest, if you have no contrast and people don't dislike you, then you have no sense of you.
Right.
I think that
because you're likely just pleasing everyone and losing yourself and there's no conflict.
Right? And it's like conflict is an opportunity to get to know yourself a little bit more.
Right.
Conflict is an opportunity for you to live more authentically. Conflict is an opportunity for you to go, what's happening in my life and my experiences? This idea of like positive mindsets is a little kind of the word that I'm looking for is like it's a bit of a facade because it's not addressing the limitations. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, like I didn't like this person said the way they attacked me. But if you're coming from a victim mindset, doesn't matter how the person comes to you, you're not hearing them anyways. Mm-hmm. So you got to get better at listening. You have to be an active listener. You have to stop, pause, even if you don't like what they're saying. Okay, I'm willing to hear. Yeah. I'm willing to hear you out. And like, even if it's like the most bizarre thing ever, and like maybe what you are hearing is a little ridiculous. Just give the person the benefit of the doubt. Take a moment and be like, okay, I'm hearing you out. Mm-hmm. Then I will walk away and I will sit with that and I will assess and I will discern. Mm-hmm. How does this remind me of my trauma? Am I in my victim mentality? What are the limitations? What are the stories I'm telling myself? Mm-hmm. How can I take the time to assess what matters to me the most? What's the bigger picture here? Mm-hmm. Does this relationship matter to me? Because if it does, then obviously it would make more sense to move closer to it. If it doesn't, then you can then go back and say, I heard everything you said. I've made my assessments. I'd like these boundaries in place. You can change a relationship dynamic. There is no harm in changing a relationship dynamic. But with the victim mentality, it's so black and white, good or bad. There's no mutability, right? There's no opportunity to change anything.
Well, you're the victim, they're the villain, and that's it. 100%. Otherwise, it negates your identity, right? So then the victim mentality has to stop seeing itself as the victim. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be hard because if that's all they know and that's the comfort zone and that's the identity, then like you said, so sitting with the discomfort and something that we talked about in the last class, actually in the homework that you gave for class 2 of the 8-week workshop, as I was reflecting on my own homework, I realized I'm like, I also play a role. So I have some limited beliefs and I play a role in how certain things have manifested in my life. And if I just assume that I can do better and I don't try, then how am I going to get better?
100%.
So then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So
yes.
It's like the victim mentality has to try something new. It's almost like, so now I'm thinking about it like, okay, if I get this same situation that keeps coming up, what else can I do that's different from what the hell I've done before? Because what the hell I've done before doesn't work. Like it puts me back into my limitation.
But you have to have the awareness of that. Because if you don't have the awareness of that, you're going to keep thinking that, why does this keep happening to me? Right? Okay. And so by having the awareness of it, because you've exposed yourself to the degree where you're like, I'm willing to step into this and I'm willing to look at like, I do that and I do behave this way. So you're someone who's willing to take the time to go, I'm all in. And like, as painful as that may be, or like the things that I need to uncover, I'm willing to explore that. But you may hit a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. This is too much, right? That's when you have to go even deeper, because then you go, okay, well, what's this limitation now that's telling me that I can't go there? Like how?
And who says I can't go there?
Yeah, 100%. And I don't understand why you wouldn't want to go there.
Right.
Especially if you're looking to attract opportunity. What most people don't understand with the limited mindset and the limited beliefs, you will not attract abundance and opportunities if you're operating from that mindset.
Yeah, because you won't even try.
No, well, not even just try, but from a universal perspective,
right?
You just won't align.
Right.
And even if you do align and you are pushing against
would you lose it?
Instantly. Most people will lose it instantly. You could at a point create the experience that you wanted, and with the assumption that that's what you wanted. Right? Like, as long as I push against myself, as long as I do the things that I need to do, as long as I have the experience that I need to have, then I may attract that experience that I thought that I really wanted. But then you're so controlled by that, that when it's gone,
with that power again,
then what?
Power from the
then
outside,
what?
right?
Like, so it's like, it's almost like, okay, I've listened to other podcasts where like people are like, I made millions, I lost millions, and I could make millions again. Do you know what I mean? This idea, like, I'm not limited. So what? It came, it went, it came, it went. I could do it again. Right. Like, there's like there's mutability in that. If I had it already, I can do it again. Who says that I can't have it again? With the victim mentality is like, that was it. I had it, and like,
it won't happen
again.
It
won't happen again.
Yeah. Well, that sounds familiar from our conversation last summer.
Yeah.
When I got laid off, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is it!" Like,
but here's a beautiful example. Okay, like, I love this so much because this is such a great example, and we'll leave it. I guess maybe we'll end here after this example. You came in and you were like in tears, and I just looked at you and I was like, "What are you crying about?"
After a 15-year career where I have no reason to be in tears.
Yes.
Like, for the love of God.
Yeah, right. And I was like, so it's so interesting because like I could see everybody else consoling you, and I just came at you. Like, I was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "That's impossible." And I'm like, "You're being ridiculous with your crocodile tears." Right? And like, I know in that moment you got offended, but it was almost like, if I don't do this to you,
but it was the truth, yeah.
Right? If I don't shake this up for you, you're just gonna keep that story as your truth. And then what? Where's the opportunity?
Yeah.
Where's the opportunity after that?
Yeah, it's I'm just gonna sit there, be sad, and think that I'm gonna have to take a job that's like something completely different.
Right. And like, but that's a victim mentality. Those are the limitations. That's the story. Well, the perfectionism kicks in. I failed. Oh my God, I've embarrassed the family.
Right. I'll never have that job again. And then what happened? A better job came in, a better environment.
But it took me like almost like shaking you.
Yeah. Remember when I almost didn't want to go to Greece too?
Yes.
Because like my severance was ending, and the victim mentality was saying, now is not the time to spend money. This is my mother.
Yes.
Right? So I'm like, oh my God, who's in my ear? And then I ended up, and I said, fuck it. I'm still gonna go. And I remember you said to me, you'll be on a beach in Greece, and somebody will be messaging you about a job. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm like, I can sit here in victim mentality, not have an experience, to go on this trip, to have a nice end to my summer.
Yeah.
And just trust that things will align.
But what it was interesting too, you also have to understand the chain of events that occurred for you to lose the job as well. We had already gone away on a trip where we were working on quantum shifting.
Same Lucia quantum shifting, separate episode, for sure.
100%. So we did the quantum shifting, and then all of that started to unravel.
And I knew the job wasn't in my alignment anyway. The job was done.
But the victim mentality is just going to
tell you a story.
Right. Yeah, it's going to keep that limitation. It's going to say, you need this.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not to say that like people have to get up and quit their jobs. I mean, that's also very impulsive. You have to be honest with yourself about where you're at. But at the same time, like, you had developed a career, you worked really hard. There was no reason for you to go into that story, but I understood that, oh, here we go, she's in this now. And I was like, and now I'm going to be the bad person, because that's what it comes down to, right? I'm going to be the bad person.
Because you have no empathy to my crocodile tears.
Right. So it goes back to, again, I have no empathy. And it's like, no, I feel immense. And like, I feel things. Like, I don't think people, we'll have a whole episode about like feelings and emotions and all that.
But the victim in me would say, you're the villain, you have no empathy. Like, can't you see what I'm going through?
Exactly. Right. And I was like, but it wouldn't make sense, because like, again, like, you also have to assess your relationships around you, right? Yeah. So like, it wouldn't make sense for me to turn to you and be like, oh, it's okay. When I'm like, but I've got all this context of information for you here. Like, you're in your limitation. You're stopping yourself from opportunity. You're stopping yourself from abundance. You're stopping yourself from what is happening right now. Snap out of it. Right? And sometimes you need people to challenge that, because if they do not, then you are not living authentically, and you're going to miss your opportunities.
Yeah. And I'm not going to have experiences. I would have missed
well,
out on experience.
You would have,
because then you're sitting at home sad and crying about what if this happens or what if
yeah, and then and usually that trauma response is because you want your mommy, or especially your mommy, to console you.
Right.
It goes back to that, if I just get sick, maybe I'll get the attention.
Right.
And it's like, oh, hey, here I am again, creating a situation. I even said it to you. I'm like, what do you want, your mom's attention? Yeah. And you're like, Mer? And I was like, okay, I get it. I'm a blunt individual. I say things how it is. I understand it. I'm not for everybody. I get it. But underlining intention or underlining motive of that is I genuinely want the best for you.
Yeah.
And I genuinely want you to get out of that limitation.
Yeah.
And like, I want you to trust yourself. I want you to be able to, like, ultimately what it comes down to is I want you to trust in you so that you know that you're not controlled by something outside of you.
Right.
And unfortunately, we do live in a society where people do lean on one another in a different kind of context. And, you know, we do want praise and validation. We want to know we're a good person and all that. I have been sitting in the 13 or 14, 15 years that I've been doing this. I have been sitting with the rejection wound so much. And more is to come. It's not to say that I'm not going to get more rejected about like the conversations I'm having about this podcast or content that I'm putting out or people seeing me from a different point of view or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But I cannot allow some external experience dictate my self-worth. I cannot do that. And I cannot sit and think to myself that I'm a victim to my circumstances and I cannot stay in my limitations, because if I stay in my limitations, then what's the point?
Right.
Then what am I doing? Why am I having this conversation? Right. Then you wonder why people are depressed. Right. Because guess what? Underneath that victim mentality, there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of sadness and there's a lot of rejection. And so you have to become aware that you need to nurture that part of your inner child. You have to nurture that part of your inner child and say, I see you, I hear you. You don't need to be accepted by everybody around you. I accept you. Right. I understand you. I love you. We're going to be okay. We're going to make this happen. We're going to work together. We're a team, right? Your inner child needs to know that, because right now your inner child is going in fight or flight response and is going, I don't know.
I'm going to lose everything.
I'm going to die. Yeah. I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
So maybe to end on like a positive note in terms of how to work through it. So if we go back to that scenario, so you called me out, I was thinking I'll never have another job and I'll be broke and I'll have this.
What was your process after that?
Right. So then when you called me out and you were like, well, what do you want? Like, so I had to get really real with myself to be like, what am I actually looking for? I'm looking for someone to soothe me. Right. That's why I'm throwing this goddamn tantrum. Like I was looking for you and whoever was in the room to just be like, it's going to be okay. And then I did do the inner child meditation, and it took me to a younger version of myself where I'm like, all I wanted was for someone to say that to me when I was younger.
Right, but the question is
just
why,
to be encouraging. But why can't I do that to myself?
Can't you? But if you know that you're doing the inner child work,
right.
Why wouldn't you be able to go visit that version of yourself and say, don't worry, it's going to be okay. You and I are a team.
Yeah.
And then ally with people who are going to like, hey, what's going on? You said you were going to do this. Did you do that? Did you get this done? Right? Yeah. Did you accomplish that?
Or like, you got this. Did you apply for a job today? Did you send out a resume?
Which is what I was doing. I was like, did you have this conversation with so-and-so? Don't worry about that. Talk to that person. Have that conversation. I didn't want to play into the victim mentality for you. I just like, for me, it was such a big thing in my childhood with my own relationship to my mother. It took everything out of me. It didn't matter how I approached that conversation. It was always a conflict. And it wasn't a healthy conflict. It wasn't a conflict where there was a resolve or an opportunity to be seen or to have a moment of relief. There was none of that. It was like, these are the choices and that's it. And I was like, so eventually I came to the point where I played the victim for a very long time, and I had those narratives and I had those experiences, and I went, this isn't working for me. I said, this isn't working for me. This isn't helping me grow as a person. It is not helping me help people. And it's definitely not helping me see the truth in who I can become.
Yeah, and it doesn't apply to the circumstance today, because the other thing that we talked about in the last workshop is It's a coping mechanism that you developed when you were younger to survive the whatever the environment was. But we're not there. We're different people. I don't live with my mom and my dad anymore, right? Like I'm not in that situation.
But those limitations, the limited mind, like
it doesn't serve me anymore.
It's so connected to the nervous system that this is why it's important to have the awareness and to do the work to begin with. So I'll leave it at that, because we will talk more about all of these things. But as far as limited beliefs go and a limited mindset, if you want to have a healthier outlook towards your experiences, please challenge your narratives. Please challenge the way that you operate in your relationships. And really ask yourself that question too, like, am I just trying to get self-soothed and have somebody else save me?
What am I looking for?
Instead of me stepping into my own empowerment. What would that look like? How can you step into your own personal empowerment?
Good one. Okay, we'll end it here.
Okay,
all right, thanks.